Welcome to Discourse. That's Retha.
That's Tony.
And today we're talking about The Helix Pearl by Ruth Finnegan. So we read The Helix Pearl by Ruth Finnegan. It's a homeric type story told in poetic verse or poetic prose. You know what I mean? And it follows the story of Kate and her adventure that she goes on. But interestingly enough, in this one, it's told from the perspective of the ocean as a character. And it took me a while. It took me a couple of pages in before I realized the story was being told from the perspective of the ocean. And once I got that, I was like, oh man, this is a very interesting point of view. The ocean felt like it was kind of like a sagely old man that liked to talk.
Right.
And it makes a lot of references to like Greek mythology and the Bible. So I wonder, like, how did he read these stories? Maybe the Iliad was dropped into the ocean and the ocean's like at the bottom just reading it, flipping through the pages and stuff. So it's very interesting because it's told from that perspective, although it's a story that already happened in another of Ruth Finnegan's novels called The Black Inked Pearl, and then The Voyage of Pearl of the Seas. In these two stories, that's where the actual story takes place. And then this one is retelling those two same stories, but from a different perspective. Right. That of the garrulous sea. You know what garrulous means?
Talking endlessly about different points
or
different stories.
Very talkative.
Yeah, very talkative.
I really enjoyed the character of the ocean because, I mean, the ocean is what 90% of this novel, right? It's told from the ocean's perspective. I want to say his. It feels like a his.
Actually, for me, I felt like it was just an all-knowing being.
Yeah, like a sagely being.
Yeah, so I didn't really get female or male. I just got that the ocean is a part of everything and anything and just knows it all.
That's what a lot of these poetic verses entail, right? Is how the ocean is everything, how it brings life into everything. I think I read one moment where the ocean was saying how it even birthed life, right? Humans came out of the ocean and things like that. That was all very interesting.
Or even it, being on other planets throughout the universe and things like that. I mean, because it's true, there's some percentage of water everywhere. So, that was really interesting. I actually never have read a book or a story told from, body of water's perspective if it has a mind.
Body of water,
so that was really cool to even sit and just think about, oh yeah, we're made up of so much of water. The world is made up. I mean, the whole universe, everything is made up of water. So it was interesting to think about that.
Yeah. So we get the character of the ocean telling us Kate's story, but we also get the ocean's perspective of humanity. We're dumping garbage in the ocean.
I felt bad. I was like, wow, this is like a Fern Gully moment. Like,
I was like, I'm sorry.
I know. I was like, wow, we're destroying the earth.
But I was having a bonfire at the beach.
I know. I was having a good time.
That trash bag floated away from me, and I had no desire to chase it. Yeah. It just floated into the ocean.
So I don't know. Is she is the author? Is she part of conservation or?
I don't know, but to give you a bit of background on the author, so the author was born in 1933, before World War II, which is interesting. She was born...
She's about 10 or so.
In, I believe, Northern Ireland, or Ireland. So that means that she would have lived through the bombings of London, lived through World War II, lived through the Nazis' attack on England. So definitely very experienced writer with life in general, but also she went to a Quaker school in York, followed by a Oxford degree in classics and philosophy, and we can definitely see this in this book. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Then she went to do African fieldwork, an Oxford doctorate in literary anthropology she's got. Again, also makes sense.
Yeah, interesting.
She did university teaching in Africa as well. She is an honorary research professor at Open University in the UK. Yeah, so she definitely has a lot of literary experience and a lot of academic experience that really comes out in this novel because, again, we get a lot of references to
so many things.
Greek mythology and the Bible and her own fantasy novel, all like weaving in and out, all told with this poetic prosody that's just like so deep and profound and almost doesn't make sense, but then once you understand what she's trying to say, you're like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe we went on this journey. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Lewis Carroll. You know who that author is?
Yeah, okay.
Lewis Carroll's the author of Alice in Wonderland and a lot of other books. But it's that same kind of style where he's making up his own kind of words and his own rhyme.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as a whole.
Right. So I haven't read any of her previous works, but I loved at the beginning where she was kind of explaining, like, this is where I was coming from with how things were written, and this is kind of how it should be read. It was almost like a really artistic song, story, poem. It was like slam poetry moment. I almost felt like, so when I was reading it, I almost found that, you know, thinking about what she had said, how to read it, I felt like I had to read it out loud, and I had to read it in like this motion, and I almost was like, yeah, I almost kind of felt like the waves, like the motion of the sea.
The whole story felt like the ocean.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense
it's
how
like
she
had a rhythm of like the ocean just slowly.
Which is something so different, and I've never read before in any type of book. So that was I actually really enjoyed that part.
Just like in Lewis Carroll books, she uses italics in different ways to get your attention. She uses capitalization in different ways. And Lewis Carroll does that same thing, all to get the reader's attention. And it's surprising how well the change in those formats changed the tone of the story.
Yeah, for sure. And I do love that she pulled a lot of stuff from her life experiences. I mean, she had so much as you went through. I mean, I'm impressed of her as a person.
Yeah, she has so much literary experience to offer readers, and all of it is provided in the Helix Pearl. At moments, I felt like I was too dumb to read this, seeing how I struggled to even get through college. Which is why I felt at first reading it, I was like, whose perspective is it and what kind of story is being told? But it's more of a thought-provoking book that's not direct, right? You have to read between the lines, read it collectively. Yeah. And like you said, when you were reading it, you felt a lot of things, right? Yeah. So it's very emotive or emotional type story.
Right. And I did find myself also, because I'm not a huge reader on poems and poetry and things like that, I had to read some of the lines a few times, or even some paragraphs and pages, because I kind of wanted to see in between the lines, like what you were saying. So I had to read them a few times, and then after I had read it, I was like, oh, and it just kept flowing that way, and I enjoyed that.
And those moments of is what I loved about the story, because there were several moments throughout the book where you're like, oh, that's amazing. Let me read you this quote. I think it'll get to the point of what we're trying to say. Okay, so we were talking about how this book is told from the perspective of the ocean, and it's telling Kate's story, but it's really about how water in the ocean brings life, and that's what this poem I think is about. So I'll read this. It's not a poem, I'm sorry. So this is part of the story that's about the ocean. So I'll read this excerpt. So it is, I make cities, human settlements all, a well, a spring, a stream, a sign of me, a blessing felt, a waterway, a source to drink and bathe and grow, a mirror for a girl to see her face, a water wheel perhaps, canal and industry, much blessed I say, by all. So again, it's talking about how the ocean gives life to everything. It gives you your mirror to see yourself, right? Before we had mirrors, obviously. There's so much that can be taken from the ocean, and that's what this story is really about. I felt maybe secondarily to Kate's story. It was really about how the ocean and how interesting that character could be on its own.
I know. I understood where she was coming from, because it's, you know, she has other books that connect with this. So this was obviously written after. So she was trying to connect it with Kate and all the other stories that she had. So it made sense in that way. But I did feel like, oh, this could be its own thing, the ocean, and how it experiences life with creating all the life that it had. And, you know, so
it was all very interesting. And now I want the ocean to then narrate many other stories to me.
Just narrate everything to me.
Narrate the Little Mermaid to me. It's like a director's cut of the ocean telling us how the Little Mermaid story
Oh my gosh. Oh wow, that'd be interesting.
Or like the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right? Yeah, that'd be super interesting.
So I really enjoyed this book.
Yeah, it definitely gave me a lot to think about with trying to be a better human, with living one with the earth and nature, and because really everything, my glasses, our clothes, everything that we see and touch was created either using water or, with anything like that.
Oh, that's a good.
So we should.
You were saying your glasses, yeah. I mean, even your glasses, because the ocean pounds the rocks into sand, and then we take sand and make that into glass.
And the plastic frames, everything.
Oh, look at you being all poetic and whatnot.
Is
Is this book making you more poetic now? You hippie.
It really did make me think a lot about that stuff. So it makes you feel like, because we say plants have no mind, no feelings, no nothing like that. But reading this book, you're like, you never would have thought the ocean had a mind or feelings or these intense, experiences. So I would second guess that.
Yes, I think that was a very good way to put it. Very intense experiences, right? And then it's a very educated voice that's portraying these intense experiences, and that's what I enjoyed.
Yeah, I liked it.
So this story, again, is telling the story of the Black King Pearl and the Voyage of Pearl of the Seas, and I do recommend that readers read those two first because it's telling Kate's story, so it'll make a lot more sense if you read those two first and then you read this one.
Yeah, I feel like I wish I had read those other two just so I could get that aspect of it before I read this, because I like this on its own, but
yeah, because I felt like I needed to get a little bit further along in the novel before I understood Kate's story. Right. Whereas if we read the Black King Pearl first, we would already understand, and then we're just getting a different perspective.
And you're just focused on the ocean. Maybe that's why we kind of feel like it could have been its own thing.
We didn't read the first two, so we felt like the ocean was our entry into Ruth Finnegan's world.
Yeah, exactly. And she seems like a super cool lady.
I don't know. So, like I said, worldly and so intelligent.
Yeah.
She also, she's also a multi-award-winning author, which is not surprising at all. That's one of the awards here is Literary Titan's Gold Award for the Helix Pearl that Ruth Finnegan won. She also is a finalist for 50 Great Writers You Should Be Reading by Authors Show in 2017. Again, not surprising. I think if you want something that's very different, you read this novel. Yeah,
and especially if you're into that artistic, poetic writing style, it was definitely something I would recommend.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this to any of those English majors out there or potential English majors.
Oh my gosh,
I think they will get a lot of benefit from this
I think so too. Breaking it down, there's just so much.
Yeah, there's just so much here to dissect and break down. And I feel like a lot I just missed because I'm too dumb.
I know. Right. Oh, and I'd like to, at the end of the book, how she kind of chose moments through the books to kind of tell you where she was at in her life and where those experiences came from and things like that.
Oh yeah, there was notes really cool. At the end.
Yeah, the notes. Right, I almost was like, can all the books have this? Because there's sometimes where you're reading a story and you're like, God, I wonder where this came from, where this manifested. And to get the author's insight, be like, yeah, this is how and why and when. And it's just really interesting. It's almost like a one-on-one kind of, of the author answering your questions.
And it helped understand the story, but also I liked that the narrator, the ocean, was kind of self-aware.
Completely.
Right? Like he would
and
talk
a little self-obsessed.
He would talk directly to the reader sometimes, right? Like in parentheses, he would speak directly to us, and it was kind of funny. Yeah. And I like those moments of levity as well.
Yeah. Did you not, or did you, when you were reading it, have because you had told me she was Irish, right? I think I had that accent in my mind even when I was reading it.
Well, I wonder if she's definitely from that part of the world, so she's got a different accent from us Americans. Yeah. So yeah, when I was reading it too, I had this idea that the ocean, I guess, had an accent.
Yeah, it just had an accent. I don't know why. Maybe even the way some of the words were written.
I think it's just because it's smart, and I connect, British accents or Irish accents
with intelligence.